Hi, welcome to DevOps Info channel. As we know, we're looking into the Microsoft data protection series, the offering that's coming from the Microsoft Purview. In the previous video, we had a look at the insider risk management and its capabilities. If you have not taken a look at it, I highly recommend to take a look at those videos so you have the continuity of the data protection capabilities and offering from the Microsoft Purview. So, uh, previously we had enabled the insider risk management. We had all the we saw all the capabilities that's coming around the insider risk management. So the question is like, I already have the required data loss prevention policies. What benefit the adaptive protection is going to give me? That might come in, that might be popping up in your mind. Um, the main benefit of the adaptive protection is to enhance the data security by dynamically adjusting the data loss prevention policies based on the user behavior and risk levels. Like for example, if you have only the Microsoft Purview Insider Risk Management and the required data loss policies enabled in your tenant, you have visibility on your critical data, and then you can see like these are the data exfiltration channels that the data theft has happened in your organization. But however, like you won't be able to take the necessary proactive measures before such incidents happen. So with adaptive protection, you have the dynamically adjusting DLP policies. This integration leverages the intelligence of Microsoft Purview and the insider risk management robust protection capabilities to provide more responsive and effective data protection strategy. So with this, like what you're doing is you're basically preventing such incidents to happen, and only with the insider risk management and with the Purview capabilities, you'll be able to view more data like and the channels where the exfiltration happened. But however, with this adaptive protection, you'll be able to prevent such kind of activities. Like let's take an example, an user who is departing your organization, like probably after some couple of years, and then they decided to exfiltrate the data. So usually what happens, like in such scenarios, before officially handing over the resignation, they would be doing data exfiltration channels in few ways. Like for example, copying sensitive data to a USB file, downloading sensitive data, and then printing them, and also deleting a few of the confidential files or like challenging projects where they have been involved. So those kind of things, like you're losing the data and the data leakage is happening. So with this adaptive protection, what happens, like I've just prepared a small slide to show how it is. Um, so it works in based on two combinations, like which is the user approach and the data approach. So when you talk about the user approach, when the elevated risk is going, like for example, when it is minor risk uh, or it is moderate risk, you can apply the data loss prevention policies in like block action if it is an elevated risk, and it works with the conditional access. Yeah, by the way, I forgot to tell you, this adaptive protection works in combination with three policies. Like first is the data loss prevention policies, second one is the conditional access policies, and the third one is the uh, lifecycle management policies. So these are data lifecycle management policies. So these three policies in combination work to protect your data with adaptive protection. So the data loss prevention policies automatically created when you enable this adaptive protection. We'll have a look at that in few minutes. And then there is also conditional access policies. It's tightly integrated with the Microsoft Entra conditional access policies to dynamically apply access controls based on the user risk levels, and the data lifecycle policies, like to ensure that your data is retained like based on the user risk level. Like by default, it retains the data for 120 days, because there is a possibility the user might delete like a very complex project files before leaving. So those kind of things, like this data lifecycle management policies handled. So it's created in the backend. So basically it has three policies tightly integrated for the adaptive protection. First is the data loss prevention policies, second one is the conditional access policy, and the third one is the data lifecycle management policy. So if you talk about how it is working with the data loss prevention, you could set block action. For example, if there is any kind of an elevated risk, then you could set a block action. For a moderate risk, then you can say a block action with allow override. For example, when a user is downgrading a sensitivity label from a confidential to a general, then you could set a block action, and you could set allow override. And the policy tip is, like, for example, when a user is downloading a sensitive file, then you could set them as a policy tip. You shouldn't download the sensitive file or something like that. So the same thing with the conditional access. Like, for an elevated risk, you can completely block access to that particular application, and then when you're going for uh, uh, a moderate risk, then you can ask the user to accept the terms of use before accessing the application. The same thing is like for the minor risk. So basically, adaptive protection works with two options, which is like the user approach and the data approach. So this is the key features. Like, it is dynamically assessing the risk, which is the dynamic risk assessment, which based on the time and the risk level. So with this, like, it continuously monitors the user activities and assigns the risk level based on the detected behaviors. Like I was saying the example in the previous slide, like how, like, for example, when a user is downloading the confidential file, that's the first thing which happened. So based on that, it's you can set a policy tip, for instance, and then, like, for example, when user is downgrading the sensitivity labels, then you can give an option of block and override. And when you go with, like, when a user is copying the confidential files to USB, printing the confidential files, emailing the confidential file, then you can completely set to block. So all these things are also an automated policy adjustment, like based on the user. As the user risk level changes, the DLP policies are automatically updated to mitigate these kind of potential threats. And it's tightly integrated. You could see, like, it's tightly integrated with the insider risk management. So by combining the insights from the insider risk management, adaptive protection is like identifying and responding to those kind of risky behaviors more effectively, and then it's providing a comprehensive data protection. So, but you see that there is, like, one a good option with this. Like, it is drastically reducing the manual effort, like, because it's automatically adjusting the policy, and it is like minimizing the need for constant manually updating your policies and allowing your security teams to focus on other important tasks. And of course, this adaptive protection is also working with the Microsoft machine learning algorithm. So, like, the Microsoft machine learning algorithm is implemented in various uh, technologies of Microsoft. Like, for example, in Microsoft 365 Defender, Microsoft Entra ID protection, and then a lot of other even in the Microsoft Sentinel. So it also uses the UEBA, which is the user and entity behavior analytics. So based on that, also this adaptive protection is able to dynamically adjust the policies and protect more with your data. So, of course, that's the reason you have the policy management. The policy is getting adjusted dynamically based on the risk level of the user. If it is an elevated risk, then it puts the user into the block mode. If it's a moderate risk, it puts them into some option with the override. If it is a minor risk, it's a policy tip. So you could be able to adjust and play around with all these things in the portal. We'll take a look at it. So the moment when you go into the insider risk management, you have an option called adaptive protection. You have to just come into the adaptive protection. Um, you could just enable this adaptive protection in few clicks, like in matter of like couple of minutes you will be able to see the adaptive protection will be turned on. But keep in mind, the moment when you enable this adaptive protection for any tenant, it takes 72 hours for the Microsoft to set up the required configuration, understand your tenant, and then act accordingly for this feature to work properly. So the moment when you turn on, you just need to wait for 72 hours to fully enable it. So you see here, the moment after you turn on, like, you see the conditional access policy is created, and also the data loss prevention is created. So When coming to talk about the conditional access policy, by default it creates one policy, and then it says like you could block the Office 365 apps. And then you see there is an option to basically for the insider risk management, like when the condition insider risk management level is high, then you are just saying the conditional access policies to block. So you have two options at the moment for the conditional access policy. You could set them in report only mode, and then later you can go to the block mode. I will show you in a moment how does it look like. So yeah, by default, like when you go with this option, it's recommended you set them in the report only mode, and then later you can switch them to block mode. And there is also option in the adaptive protection. If you see, like if you go to the conditional access policies section, you'd be able to create a policy for this adaptive protection. So, but by default, it creates one policy. With that, you'll be able to see, you'd be able to block the Office 365 apps if the risk level is elevated for a particular user. So, if I go to the conditional access, you see here that there would be one policy that's created for the particular use case that we are going to talk here. Yeah. So block access to Office 365 apps users with insider risk preview. And by the way, this is in preview, so you need to keep in mind like not enable it on the production until like you do the complete full cycle test on your staging environment, and then just wait for Microsoft to go for the general availability. So you see here it's included for all users, and the target resources like it's targeted for the Office 365 apps. And the condition you see like you have a separate like you have a condition like for the Microsoft Purview inside risk management for any kind of such elevated risk, then you can uh, turn on this policy which will block because you see grant is block access. But for this, like we have not enabled it, so it's just in report only mode. So this is for the conditional access. And for the data loss prevention, yeah, you have the adaptive protection for data loss policy. You can also create the policy based on your requirement. But like the moment when you create this data loss for like the moment when you create the adaptive protection, it creates two DLP policies. And like the settings whatever you have in the data loss prevention policy, when such kind of events triggers, then the adaptive protection comes into play. Like there is also a section called insider risk levels. In this insider risk levels, you could select the adaptive protection policy. In our case, like we have selected two policy, one for the Office 365 apps, and the second one is for the devices, endpoint devices. And I have set some data loss prevention policies, which could take some time to and like to react because it's just only 72 hours I have enabled this. So in the next video, I will show some proactive actions taken by the adaptive protection for the user, which is like the actions that's taken on the devices and also on the Office 365 apps. So you can like select the insider risk policy which is going to be applicable, and after that, the elevated risk level content is like here. When the user performs at least three sequence with a high severity, then it's an elevated risk. You could further edit it from here, but it's up to you. And then if you come down, this is also the past activity detection. How do you determine like the risk level? You could select it like seven previous activity, or or even you can lower it down. So these are the insider risk level settings that you could configure from here for customizing the adaptive protection in your case. And if you come to the adaptive protection settings, at last you need to turn this on so that it would be able to define the insider risk levels based on the policies that that's defined in the adaptive protection. So overall, with this, like you would be able to completely manage the context aware detection policies, like as this policies uses machine learning to analyze the user activities and the contents. This is really helping to identify and mitigate the most critical alerts that's happening in your organization. So overall, like what I want to tell is like by creating this dynamically adjusting uh, policies, which is an offering that's coming from the adaptive protection. It provides a comprehensive and a proactive approach on a data security, helping the organizations to protect the sensitive information and compliance also with the regulatory requirements. So overall, adaptive protection Microsoft Purview is a significant advancement in the data security, which is offering the proactive, intelligent approach to protect your sensitive data information in today's the threats that's happening, especially from the insider risk management. Because like most of the organization is focusing more on the external threats. Like there is also possibility the insider risk management. Like the data leakage would happen potentially from a departing employee, from the vendors, and also there are few other channels the data leakage would happen. So overall, it's really important to protect your data and then put the necessary measures and controls for your insider data leakage in your organization. Hope you enjoyed this video. See you in the next video. Thank you.